Hello, everybody. Happy April Fool's Day. I don't think we have anything planned.
There's no fooling here. Unless there's a nonsense story that got us.
It's all nonsense.
Well, it's not all nonsense. There's also space and design and robot, this section.
And let's start talking about some space stuff, even though this is not in space. It's about things that maybe came from space, but maybe not.
A lot of tantalizing clues here.
Because it turns out that, if you recall, recently the U.S. government was like, yep, we're telling you all the UFO secrets. And everybody was like, what, really? Why all of a sudden? And then they gave us something that was very tepid.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of stuff, had a lot of redactions in it. And now we get a slightly less redacted version.
Activist publishes a redacted version of classified military UFO report. So this has got some information from the other one, but they redacted some diagrams, and so there's some supplemental text around the redacted diagrams that wasn't previously in the other reports. This is actually really exciting because there are some legitimately unexplainable things that happened, and there are some things that happened that are explainable, which suggests a terrestrial explanation. So goodness, I hope that was our stuff and not somebody else's stuff.
Well, that is the other thing they point out, is not only do they catalog all of them, they try to figure out ones that's like, well, maybe that's China. But they're still not sure.
I'm not sure which one to be hopeful for.
Who's less likely to want to kill us? China or the aliens? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
They're just here with popcorn because we're right at the precipice of the Great Filter, and so they're just hanging out watching.
Yeah, they're chilling.
We are heading back to the moon, hopefully. You know, if things don't fall apart between now and then, which is a distinct possibility. But it turns out that we knew that SpaceX won the contract to build the lander, but wait, what about second lander?
NASA wants another moon lander for Artemis astronauts, not just SpaceX Starship. They're looking at Musk and saying, he's a little unstable, maybe we need a plan B. Not really, I'm filling in the gaps.
Well, they're probably also looking at the Cosmonauts on the space station, and they're like, you know what, contingency is probably a good idea in space.
Redundancy.
We don't need to worry, we do need to worry about the equipment, but not only do we have to worry about the equipment, we have to worry about politics at home. Don't get stuck up there. And we've been waiting and waiting. Of course, SpaceX is the big dog when it comes to taking things up to space, but NASA has been working on their own new rocket.
NASA's megarocket, the Space Launch System, rolls out to its launch pad. Oh, there's a picture. Look at that.
It's beautiful.
I don't know about the color scheme.
I'm into it.
You
it's
like
vintage,
it?
Yeah.
Feels a little Russian. Can we get some blue in there?
It's burnt orange. Umber. Actually, it's not quite umber. It's a burnt orange.
Is that just, did they paint that, or is that just the natural color of some of that material?
It's just rust.
Couldn't get enough metal from the shipment, so they just used whatever they had on hand.
It's a protective layer of rust.
And we talked about in the first episode this week of Viasat, which was affected by hackers because probably Russia wanted to shut down that communication. But you also have OneWeb, which is another satellite company, and now they have to rush into the arms of their competitor.
UK-backed OneWeb is going to have to use rival SpaceX rockets after the Russian ban. So OneWeb wants to get their satellites in orbit, and they've got to go see Mr. Musk.
You think there might be a situation where it's like, oh, I guess we lost one.
Oops. Turns out you can't reuse it. Sorry. I'm sure they have insurance for that.
Now, some people in the YouTube comments, so who the hell knows, but some people said in that, remember, what was the company that blew up that last rocket? They said that there was no insurance for that because it was experimental.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, speaking of experiments, there are experiments going on around the clock on Mars. And it's not the Martians. It's these plucky robots that we keep sending up there, and they keep learning new things.
Analysis of sound captured by Perseverance rover reveals the speed of sound on the red planet. So, if you were talking to somebody and you expected the sound to go from your space helmet, through the atmosphere to the other space helmet, it turns out different components of human speech are going to travel at different speeds. It's probably going to be off-putting.
Because of the frequency, imagine one of Mariah Carey's more rangy songs. That would be a trip. And I bet somebody's probably going to do this. You could simulate this in software.
Yeah, somebody's writing the software right now to hear what it would sound like on Mars.
Once you get all the ranges figured out, the numbers and the distance, the time thing, you could actually simulate that. That'd be cool.
I wonder if there would be, if it's enough of a difference, if the speed is enough different that if somebody's closer, that it's a much noticeably different sound than if they were, 10, 20 feet away.
It would be because even though the time is the same, you would perceive it differently, right? Because the faster ones are getting further ahead.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends on how much faster. Still.
It's probably not huge. It's probably just enough. You ever remember we were talking about that whole thing where if you hear your voice fed back to you slightly delayed, it just screws your mind
I was
up.
just going to say, like when you're on a Zoom call or something with a client and then you somehow hear yourself and it's like, ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah, thinking about all this is just trippy.
Ugh.
I bet somebody's going to use this to figure out some horrible new... remember the LRAD weapons?
The brown note weapons.
They'll figure out a way to screw us up with sound using this technology.
We were only trying to... It was a prank, bro. We were trying to do brown note. It turns out we accidentally microwaved people's brains. I'm sorry. That's the weapon that
What
was
if
in
this
Cuba.
puts a big, wrench in Musk's plan to be king of Mars? He can't stand it because he can... Actually, he's the only one who can stand it because he hears himself all the time.
But he could you'd have to build the modulator that holds certain frequencies and then spits them out all at once.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
You
So everyone
could do
has
that.
to wear,
Like the Vader mask. Yeah. Or we could build a giant dome and fill it with Earth atmosphere. That would also be fine.
Not as cool.
No.
We need a really hard material that can...
But what are you going to do when you're out in your spacesuit? I guess radio at that point?
Yeah, probably radio. Because you got your little bubble of air at the correct temperature and pressure.
Maybe it'd be like I always thought it was silly in those DC movies whenever Aquaman has to talk to somebody. They create a bubble of air around them because obviously you can't have a conversation underwater. You can do something like that. I'm terrified of this whole... It's not just ALS. Other diseases can do this. Is ALS what's his name, the genius? The guy?
Hawking?
Is that what he had?
I believe so.
Yeah, so, what a terrible, terrible thing. But it would be nice if you did have it to have this reprieve, because after months of just being locked inside your own body, this must be heaven.
In a first, a brain implant lets a man with complete paralysis spell out thoughts. I love my cool son. And also, can you put on Tool?
He wanted to hear the new Tool album.
Loud. He said loud. But it takes hours to bang out even just little messages, because whatever this brain implant is, it affects tones somehow, and it took them like a year to work out how to use that to communicate.
So it's kind of like texting on an old phone keypad, where each letter has a certain tone, but it's represented a number of times, so you keep hitting it to get. So yeah, he has to bang out these messages just like the old school Nokia.
They didn't report how many times he said, "Please just kill me."
I thought about that because in one of the greatest music videos ever made, One by Metallica, they have an old movie. I can't remember what. I think it's like Johnny Got a Gun or something like that. And he gets hit by a landmine, and he's in this situation, and so he starts using Morse code and blinking, and then when they work it out, it's just "kill me" over and over.
If I were in that situation, I'd probably be blinking that out too.
Help me.
Amazing music video. Go and check it out. Well, I don't know. Before we talk about this one, could this have been a coincidence?
No.
Is there any possibility?
No, there's no chance this was a coincidence.
So if this was not a coincidence, not only did they do this at risk of their own lives, let's admit, their popularity, their famousness might save them here. How long did it take them to make these suits? They got that done very quickly.
They did. A message to Ukraine: cosmonauts wear yellow and blue flight suits for the trip to space. I have a feeling the people in Ukraine will find that small consolation.
Yeah.
But, maybe.
But you do have to be, and we feel this to a much lesser extent. If you are somebody who feels like you believe in liberty and freedom and actual, universal rules for everybody, that we have human rights, being an American can be a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
Especially among academic circles and high-minded people like that, like a space station.
Yeah.
So I think these guys knew. They were like, we got to do something to show the other guys up there without saying it. Hey, we're on this team.
But I heard with this story that they had already warned them. Like, this was not a thing that was supposed to be.
Well, according to them, they just had a lot of yellow material.
Yeah.
But it's such a coincidence.
It is, yeah.
Don't you think, I don't know, maybe it's a supply chain issue, but don't you think that if it really was a mistake, somebody at the space agency was like, let's use the backup. Let's use the away jerseys this time.
It was probably not a coincidence.
Well, language separates us, and we've all seen, like in all the great sci-fi, they have to figure out a way to deal with that. Was there something expressly in Star Trek that explained that? Did the computer just do it, or
the AI, the auto translation? Yeah. It took you had to feed the computer as much, like when you encountered a new race, you had to feed it as much stuff as possible. And when the Enterprise encountered people that were having trouble translation, it was basically like, send them Wikipedia, and maybe they can use that to translate.
But was Worf speaking English on the bridge?
I think no. I think that the computer was just suppressing what he was saying and translating everything.
Interesting. I mean, for a TV show, you couldn't actually play that out.
Yeah.
But it is something you always have to think about with fiction. Well, maybe we're getting closer to that.
Microsoft improves its AI translations with Z code.
It's a new kind of AI that is much better at taking language and figuring out another language. And it doesn't require the giant data sets to be loaded every time. It can pick and choose somehow, which makes it much faster.
It'll be great until you encounter, Shaka when the walls fell and Timba, his arms wide.
We can teach you that.
Well, it's the universal translator translated it. It knew that those are names and pronouns and stuff, but it's like it couldn't give you meaning.
You probably can't imagine if it's translating our politicians speak to the other people. And I'm like, this is just word salad.
Macbeth, his hands bloody. I don't know.
Why does she keep talking about the passage of time? Well, moving into some robot news, here's something that we've all known all along. This is not a surprising statement, but it seems someone has crunched the numbers.
Robot truckers could replace 500,000 U.S. jobs. This will happen, and this will happen almost overnight.
I wonder when it's going to happen, though. It seems like they're still pretty far away from having something reliable.
Now this is probably some fossil fuel industry propaganda, at least to some extent, but I've read that you can't, to generate the same amount of torque and power to get a truck going is going to be insanely taxing on a battery.
Yeah, that's true.
And that we wouldn't even be close to doing that, especially with a heavy load.
I'm just thinking like the AI component of trying to get trucks over like mountains or bad weather, that kind of thing.
Well, they talk about, a lot of cases they're going from one factory to another factory and conditions are usually pretty good. Usually. Mm-hmm. But what if something happens?
Well, the NVIDIA demo this week, they were taking just pictures, like 12 or 15 pictures of somebody standing in a room, and then they had the AI recreate that in 3D. And that kind of stuff for driving, it's so fast and it's so accurate. That kind of thing for driving would be incredible.
Well, that's what it'll be, except it won't be the person in the car. It'll be the person at the data center.
Right, yep, exactly.
That's terrifying.
That's why I think there's a chance that this might be here a little sooner than expected. Because what Musk is doing is, we're not going to trust those vehicles to drive on their own between factory A and factory B. That's crazy.
But anything we save from that in terms of supply chain, don't we just inflict the same damage to the economy by firing everybody?
It's going to be a little weird helping those people find something else productive to do.
They did really well at finding people other stuff to do when they took away the coal jobs here too. So I have every confidence that they will work on.
See,
those
they
people.
don't know, Krista, that's not what happened at all.
Almost everybody that didn't work in the coal mines anymore became a drug addict and died.
Well, they also became dealers.
They would never let that happen a second time with truck drivers. That would never happen.
The great thing about it is I don't think the truckers will follow that same course because meth is not popular among truckers. Well, do you remember during the pandemic, one of the stories that kept coming out over and over was like all the people were gone and the animals started taking back over, except in situations where the animals were dependent on the humans, like New York. The rats didn't know what to do.
They got aggressive.
They didn't have any food. And so now, as things open back up, we have aggressive rats that do have a food supply. How do you control it?
Cities are switching to smart rat control. So basically, these are traps that signal, hey, there are traps here, because rats will see their dead brethren around in traps and learn to avoid traps. Yeah,
they just they store them in a temporary storage. the job of going around and emptying
That
rat
can't
stores?
smell good.
I used to be a truck driver. And now
And now I do this.
And they use, instead of using poison, they use electrical shock. So they basically defibrillate the rats to death by shocking their heart out of sequence, and then they just die.
But you got to make sure the other rats don't see that, otherwise they learn. So,
Never show them the blade.
yeah.
We learn about AI. It's always doing the protein folding. It's learning about new drugs. It turns out it's really good if you just tell an AI, hey, go find out this and turn it loose. It'll return a massive number of results. But there are some times that we probably shouldn't do that.
AI suggested 40,000 new possible chemical weapons in just 6 hours. Probably not a good idea to be writing stories like this when there's propaganda going around about biolabs and weird research and stuff.
The chemical weapon propaganda is running at 11 right now. What do you think the possibility of that is? You think there's a real threat?
No, I think there's no chance that was a thing.
But like a month ago, everyone was like, "Oh, Russia would never invade Ukraine," so I don't know what to think anymore.
That's absolutely true. But they keep pointing to the Syria example, but wasn't that debunked?
It was.
But not according to the mainstream media.
No. It's not. Would you want anything that level of dangerous in a lab in that place in the world? That seems like that's just incredibly reckless.
You mean where they are right now?
Yeah.
Where you're not allowed to talk about?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's... Look at... We learned from Resident Evil, like, those Raccoon City labs were the most advanced places on Earth, and it still got out of there. We really don't want it in, like...
Resident Evil. That's not a good thing to compare it to. Would you say that Flippy was our favorite robot ever?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody loves Flippy. He's got a great name. He's upbeat. He makes fast food. Everybody loves fast food, right? I mean, in a way, he's killing us, isn't he?
He is.
But we love him for
Great.
it. And now, Flippy, maybe not to be outshined, but to have a brother or
Ooh.
sister, a sibling, because Miso Robotics also makes...
Chippy. Chippy the robot makes tortilla chips imperfect on purpose.
They look good. I mean, this is probably a stock photo, but
There's a tiny, tiny picture of Chippy making chips at a Chipotle. There you go.
He looks pretty much like Flippy, doesn't he?
He does.
Except they're making chips instead of flips.
Instead of flips.
So what they're talking about in the headline is they figured out that when Chippy makes chips, they're too perfect. They're perfect triangles. They're perfectly seasoned. Everything is perfect. And people ate them, and they're like, something's not right. So they skewed him a little bit. They're like, I don't know, screw some of the chips up. And people are like, yes.
It's the uncanny valley of chip production.
Exactly.
It's the Matrix. It's the
Oh,
Matrix.
yeah,
Remember, they
yeah.
were like, we made a Matrix that was perfect, and people rejected it, so we had to add flaws back in.
Do you suppose that, you're thinking about the uncanny valley, it's like people really notice the uncanny valley in video games. Do you suppose that there's an evolutionary pressure that created that?
Oh yeah, I've heard that theory before, where it's like, why is everyone always scared by people with like long dark hair and pale eyes and red?
I think a lot about this, like in turn, because we've learned that there was a lot of mixing with the Neanderthals when we had moved beyond the Neanderthals.
It looks like they're human, but they're not human.
It was very common for the more advanced humanity precursor to head down to the Neanderthal cave for some fun on a Friday night.
But they might rip your arms out of the socket.
Because those girls didn't say no if you took some food, especially if it was cooked food or a tool or something like that. Literally a lesser species. So I believe that we all have probably variable levels of different kinds
Uncanny
of
valley.
precursor, right? And that's why some of us are launching things into space. Some of us are doing much less. It's not based on anything. It's just something I thought about.
All of us, though, like you said, or launching things in space, but no one at this desk, or probably in the comments, is launching stuff into space.
Yeah, but we're also not painting with our own feces.
Oh, you don't know what I do in my free time.
That's true, I don't. But you're an artist, so I might forgive you for that, if it was good.
It was good.
And speaking of artistry, Krista, that is the sole reason I added this story, because we want to get your opinion on the... Now, do you say Ubuntu or Ubuntu?
I think it's Ubuntu.
I hate Ubuntu.
Yeah, I think that's the more correct pronunciation.
Let's call it Ubuntu.
I've always said, Ubuntu, but
I
don't
shouldn't say
actually
that
know.
because of the whole GIF thing.
Do we have a story about that?
That guy died.
I was going to say,
died,
did we
yeah.
put that in?
I didn't because it was just
His
sad.
dying words were, it's pronounced Jif. I'm only slightly joking about that, too.
So, you know what? You've convinced me it's Ubuntu as much as I hate it.
A new look for the Circle of Friends, which is the logo for Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Now I don't know how to say it. Now that you've brought it up, I don't know what to say.
It looks like 3 people trying to choke each other out.
It's literally the same logo.
With one arm each?
Yeah.
It's the same logo. There's a statement from the designer in this article, and he was like, we tried some different things.
Here's the evolution, Kristen.
Yeah.
Walk us through this.
No, we can read the guy's thoughts. He's like, we tried a bunch of different stuff, and like we really explored lots of crazy ideas, but in the end we decided we haven't changed as a company, so our logo's not going to either.
Now, you did bring up earlier when we were talking about that other logo, the single color. So they got on that bandwagon.
Right. You should always make it, you don't have to use just one color, but it should be able to go back to one color in case you ever need to do it in a one color application. Like in print, for example.
If I've used Ubuntu a lot. If you would ask me what the logo was, I wouldn't be able to describe it to you.
I looked up all the Linux distros once to see all their branding, and yeah.
I know Red Hat. That one's easy.
Yeah. Most of them are pretty typical kind of logos.
Kristen, do you still have a vapor in your household?
Not as often. He doesn't vape very much anymore.
Really? Maybe
Yeah.
he's hiding it from you.
No, he if he feels the urge to smoke now, he'll do like a nicotine gum.
Oh.
So yeah, he doesn't really even vape
That's
that
expensive though, isn't it?
often. Yeah, but he doesn't do it very often.
You know you can buy expired nicotine gum on eBay?
What a hot tip. I bet Marketplace has some too.
Well, smoking, for a long time there, you didn't see a lot of people smoking, even around here, which is poor country, which is like heavy smoking stuff. But it seems to have picked back up in 2020. Now, I'm trying to think, what happened in 2020 that might have resulted in stress?
Oh, hey, who knows?
So they're asking this in the headline. I don't know. They can't think of it either. What could it have been?
Teens are struggling to quit smoking and vaping. There's a higher percentage of failed attempts in 2020 than the prior decade.
A lot of my younger cousins have gotten into vaping. Like, they're still in high school, but they vape.
Now, the vaping, you can do that with and without the nicotine, right?
Yes.
Is there a big negative health consequence to just doing the vape without the nicotine?
Probably because you're still inhaling something into your lungs, but it's probably not nearly as bad as nicotine.
But it's just water vapor, right? Or oil
There's
vapor?
other stuff in it, though.
I remember when they had that scare because somebody was using the wrong kind of oil and it was killing people.
Right, and there's so many just like cheap Chinese knockoff products at these stores. Who knows what's in it?
Probably true.
So, but yeah, a lot of stress. So people took up vaping as an alternative to cigarettes. And you were inside too, so you probably didn't want to smoke inside. That's probably a big reason vapes took off.
And you're bored.
Yeah.
Very bored. Now, you guys ever in your life, have you ever been a TV on sleeper?
Occasionally I'll fall asleep with the TV on, but not often. Usually
When
we
I
turn
was
it off.
in high school, sometimes I would put the sleep timer on and watch Nick at Night while I fell asleep. Apparently that was a bad move.
Close the blinds during sleep to protect your health. Even moderate light exposure during sleep harms heart health and increases insulin resistance. It's definitely the case that when I set the alarm and I have to get up before the sun's up, if I have to wake up and it's dark outside, I get very irrationally angry.
Same.
Very angry.
You know what really cuts down on sleep time? Not eating. It's amazing. It's amazing how much less you will sleep if you stop eating.
I already don't sleep well. I can't do that.
Oh, well, I know this pain. Fortunately, it's only happened to me twice recorded. Once, I'm pretty sure was that, but I just didn't know what it was at the time. And it was small enough that it just passed, and I'd never really figured out what happened. I was just like, oh, I'm in a lot of pain today. But I was not, back in those days, you couldn't do this. But nowadays,
You could, yeah.
monetize it.
David Cronenberg to unveil kidney stones as an NFT. I don't think anybody's explained to him what an NFT is, although technically kidney stones would be non-fungible and physical tokens.
I don't like the pictures of it.
This is, you'd like them a lot less if you'd felt one going through your urethra there. But these are all from like the last 2 years. He is cranking them out.
That man needs to change his diet or something.
I bet this puppy was a bad one.
Ugh.
That was during my stint with cashews.
You know, I'm back on the almonds.
Ooh.
So far, it's okay.
You gotta just very, very carefully ease into it.
I'm pounding the water while I'm eating my almonds. But God, those habanero almonds from Blue Diamond, those are good.
We have some of those downstairs in the break room, and all of those Blue Diamond flavors are good.
They're fantastic. Yeah, the wasabi ones are pretty good too. Well, food security. Krista, you are concerned about food security. I believe you are planting potatoes, are you not?
I am. They're supposed to be here this week, and they're still not here.
Now, potato, you would think, are great food for starvation, right? Lots of calories, very starchy. It's going to fill your stomach up. But did you think about the energy costs?
Yes. Food bank users declining potatoes as cooking costs are too high, says Iceland boss. You have to keep the oven on for quite a while when you're doing potatoes. Also, I think there's a time cost because it's a raw ingredient. You got to process it a little more. And if you're someone who's working 2 or 3 jobs, do you have the time to peel, cook, eat the potato, and then clean everything up?
This is talking about just the energy cost, but get a wood burning stove.
Now, well, you got to have wood.
Yeah, and also like $1,000 to get one
Yeah.
installed and a higher insurance cost.
My answer is even worse than that in terms of clueless rich society. I'm like, I'll just make mine in the air fryer. So fast and easy.
Why don't they just have an air fryer?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I sympathize, but
That might be a fun physics, a little maybe engagement challenge for physics students is what is the energy cost to the best deal for microwaving a potato or for cooking a potato? Is it microwaving? Is it an oven? Is it?
Now, you can make a potato in a fire, but you need aluminum foil.
Yeah.
And aluminum's a shortage situation right now.
yeah.
But reusable.
Well, up to I don't know how. Oh, here's another physics question for you. How many potatoes could you make with the same piece of aluminum foil before it disintegrates?
Probably at least 5.
But you're burning it.
Yeah.
I watch these off-grid people, and they have like a solar setup to do all their cooking, and they mostly cook on their wood stove. But they said that they got an Instapot because the Instapot doesn't draw nearly as much power as like a slow cooker or literally anything else.
Because once it gets
Up to pressure, yeah, they
and
say it's
heat,
fine.
Yeah, you just let it sit there.
So it just sits.
Interesting. Maybe we should be sending instant pots to Ukraine.
There is also
have
that electrical generator that you burn something and it's like a copper coil that sits over fire and somehow that generates electricity.
Oh. Never seen that.
Another thing you might not have if you're just in a row house somewhere starving to death.
Yeah.
Raw potatoes are not delicious.
They can be made delicious pretty easy.
Now, this might be too hot for YouTube. We're still thinking about doing that, but it's so hard with the time lapse because collecting stories is. We're working on a plan for that. But I will say this. I think they were really, really stretching to try to find something wrong with this woman.
Yeah.
They really were.
She seemed to be pretty reasonable and answered their questions normally. And, I hate the idea of her being there. Give me another Republican on that seat. But even I cannot find a lot wrong. However, this statement was a little weird.
Marsha Blackburn asked Ketanji,
I think that's right.
A word you've never had to say out loud. But
Brown
I've read.
Jackson to define woman, and science says there's no simple answer. So, if this person had asked this question honestly, they probably would have gotten a different answer. But this person didn't ask this question honestly.
Well, they said exactly what it says there. Can you define a woman?
Yeah, it's not. That's in this context. I get why she answered the way that she did.
There is no context that makes that okay. Let me tell you something. I've been making that discrimination ever since I went to my first public bathroom. It was so easy. It's the one without the skirt. You guys are being careful not to get on the wrong side of the mob here.
I get sometimes it's complicated.
It's not. It's very simple.
The real question is, why do we even have gendered bathrooms anymore? Like, is that necessary overall? Because guys are always complaining, oh, I don't have a place to change my kid.
Because if we don't do that, Krista, I'm amazed that I have to explain this to you. If we don't do that, guys are going to show you their dicks.
That I'm going to blow your mind. That happens anyway. All the time.
When was the last time?
Oh, I've had it happen down here.
Down where?
Like, just down the street here.
Like, just look.
People do it all
outside.
Yeah. Like, it's not uncommon. Like, it shouldn't be a common thing, but it happens all the time.
There was that case, where there was a transgender guy, or whatever, and I think it was in elementary school or middle school or something, who actually raped a girl in the bathroom.
Yeah. Do you think that sign keeps them out?
No, but the girl could have said something Like she could not say anything in that situation because she would be vilified for saying that person doesn't belong here and I'm not going to feel safe. I'm surprised you're on that side of that argument because you're the victim there for sure. Anyway,
I don't think that an arbitrary sign makes you not the victim, though. Like, people are going to mess you up either way.
Oh, I absolutely agree that if someone is properly motivated, they're not going to look at a sign and be like,
oh no. Never mind.
But our lawmakers need to not be, wishy-washy on that situation. Yeah. This one is great because it's the Wizard of Oz, right? Did anybody check under this house for a witch? I don't think so. I think she's under there and we're in trouble.
Girl survives a tornado that lifts her house and deposits it into the middle of a street. So it moved her house 30 feet. Pretty sure whoever built her house probably didn't anchor it to the foundation correctly.
Or it was a very powerful tornado.
Depends on when it was built.
Yeah, but if it was a very powerful tornado and it was properly anchored, wouldn't it just tear it off in half instead of picking it up?
Yeah, it would disintegrate it probably. The tornado would have had to have been stronger because it held together, so that's good. She survived.
What's the Fujita scale rating in this article?
I don't know.
Did it mention
that?
Sometimes it'll be EF now.
It was not the finger of God. Now here's a question. It's in the middle of a street. Who pays for that cleanup?
Oh, the homeowner will have to.
Is she going to be on the hook for that? Wow, what an insult.
Yeah, and the insurance might not pay for it
because it's an act of God.
Yeah, or no, it's like, once your house left, we don't have to be responsible for that.
We didn't insure a mobile home.
We only insure the bubble over top of your property.
Yeah, exactly.
If the house leaves.
It's an area of effect.
Yeah.
She could maybe make the argument that most of the damage happened while the house was still there. But how do you prove that, right?
I'm just thinking of the stories where it's like, oh, we're not going to give you insurance because the tornado ripped your roof off. We'll pay for your roof. But the water damage, your insurance doesn't cover water damage.
Insurance really does just feel like a scam every time you discuss it. Because they really will weasel their way out of everything.
Well, you think home insurance is a scam. How about medical insurance?
Yeah, for real. They weasel their way out of everything.
And speaking of things that are a joke...
Apple and Microsoft are at the top of this strange list of most ethical tech companies.
Who's at the bottom?
Didn't Apple recently have stories about slaves?
Yeah.
I mean, the ethical issues with Apple are so numerous.
They're literally making it hard to repair devices to pad their bottom line.
What about the SSDs we just talked about this week?
Exactly, yeah. That is not ethical.
How are the most companies? They pay to be put on this list so we can run this.
Absolutely.
Well, they're most ethical as long as you ignore the whole completely sociopathic quest for profit.
Yeah, I'm not sure
if you take that out, then they're ethical.
I'm not sure if there's any major tech company that could be described as ethical.
Steam.
Yeah, Gabe, I think.
Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
They're just not names that anybody cares about. Yeah. We're really going to get disappointed in the comments. People are going to be like, Raspberry Pi did war crimes.
Yeah. Fairphone actually is fair. Yeah, it's like, crap.
Where do you think they get their rare earth materials? It comes from grinding up orphans. This is like, no.
Fairphone uses fair trade gold. I don't know where they get the rest of it, though.
Well, Disney, they have been in a little bit of hot water, actually, for the last decade.
Does he look like a supervillain?
Kind of,
There's no light in his eyes.
He's even got the supervillain chair.
He's, oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely has that kind of power, right?
Yeah.
But the latest one they got in trouble with was the whole Florida gay thing. You've been following that?
Yeah.
And Disney was kind of like, well, I don't know. We like profits. And they gave lip service to the fact that they like the gays as well. But at the end of the day, they went with profits. And in this same situation here, they're condemning it. But next year, will they do it again?
Probably. Disney said it regrets a racist cheer by a high school team. The cheer is in the article. And it was something about the high school mascot was Indians, and they wanted them. The cheer was involving scalping.
The girls themselves were the Indianettes. Mm-hmm. Now their rebuttal is that they've been doing that for 20 years. They said they did the exact same cheer every year at Disney for like the last 10 years, and this is the first time anybody was ever bothered by it.
Values grow and change. I mean,
the school I went to had the tomahawk thing because we were also the Indians. I think they're still the Indians. I don't think they ever changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Indians you can still get away with. Obviously, Redskins was a little bit too harsh for them. The Braves are still the Braves, right?
They're looking into changing it. We did a story about that.
But the Braves doesn't describe the race. It describes a job within that race or within that society, right? Wouldn't that kind of be like saying the plumbers? Or the soldiers?
Is there an ethnic job though?
Well, there's only one ethnicity in the whole society.
I mean, I don't. It would be pretty racist if your mascot was like the Irish potato farmer, and it's like,
What if you didn't? What if you just took the Irish out of it?
the potato
Just
farmer.
The potato farmer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Krista's a potato farmer.
maybe, but then if all the iconography
Small
and
scale.
stuff is like the classic like drunk Irish person,
Yeah,
it's
they're the potato farmer, but the logo is actually a pint of beer.
like, yeah.
Like the Mountain Dew had the hillbilly. That was his art.
The
There's
leprechaun smoking a crack pipe.
We have learned that some of these things are maybe not the best and maybe should change for the future. I mean, tradition.
Can't we just use animals? Like animals seems pretty safe.
Some people don't like certain animals, though, right?
Well, not liking them is different than
What if you have somebody that went to the school that was mauled by a bear,
or
or their
tragic.
parents were killed by a bear?
Oh,
Well, we are suffering from shortages. How's the orange soda situation right now?
It's been okay. I mean, I've bought some extra, and that's been wise because the supply has been a little spotty.
Can't get Nestle water,
No.
Well,
but I can
cereal.
get water.
You were saying earlier you were going to try to stock up on some cereal.
Oh yeah. The shrinkflation to cereal is just pathetic. But
Is it-
if it's going to get worse, I might as well stock up on it.
I think it was about 3 weeks ago when we heard, hey, if the Ukrainians don't get to plant their wheat in 3 weeks, we're in a lot of trouble. And I don't think they're going to be able to.
There was literally a Biden press conference yesterday where he was like, "There's going to be some food problems." So
Yeah, I suspect in the U.S. that probably just means even higher costs, but in other parts of the world that could mean no bread.
But only because the cost will destroy the demand. People will still be going without, but not because it's not on the shelves.
Yeah,
Because
it's
they
just
can't afford it.
they're exporting all of it.
Which is the beauty of supply and demand when you let it work, but it's still going to be a really bad time. However, we are not suffering anything as bad as Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka runs out of paper amid economic crisis and postpones exams. So this is probably, the article says this is the worst economic crisis in Sri Lanka in decades.
Do you think they have the same thing that we have, which is a Green Party, which is like, this is good for paperless. Never mind the human suffering.
There's part of me that, because so much of our lives is online now, I'm like, what do I use paper for anymore?
Engagement
Receipts?
challenge. Tell us what's going on in Sri Lanka because our media has not covered it.
Yeah, I gotta plan a trip to the office to print all my tax documents. 'Cause that's the only time I print anything.
It's the only time the printers get any love. You know, it's funny. The printers that we have, if they're off for a long period of time, it ruins the toner. So you have to just leave them on, even though they're not printing, so that it'll stir the toner.
Sometimes
Now,
when we do
seems-
logos, I'll print them just to like see how they look and print. But
Seems like during the testing phase, that would be easy to spot. Well, we have our militarized police system, and oh boy, can they come down hard on a threat. Doesn't have to be a real threat.
Police. Autocorrected text triggered a large police presence in Pittsburgh North Side. So they shut down a couple schools and a mall and some other areas. It turns out the text message was fire alarm. That was corrected to firearm. Oops.
Which, on its face, is not an illegal thing in this country. Maybe it is in Pittsburgh, I guess. Yeah, that's probably one of the murder capitals. Right? I'll take it back.
one
It
of the
probably-
murder.
probably
There's so
is.
many.
I thought they went open carry in Pennsylvania.
Probably not in the city, though, right? Because you have that, like New York. You got that disconnect.
This story was sad.
This was
I mean,
very
it
sad.
ended happy, but
Yeah, I had happy. Now, but this is ridiculous because, unless there's just an overwhelming percentage of gay dogs, because every mongrel that I've ever seen on the holler did this. This is something that dogs do.
Dog stumped at local shelter because the owner said that he was gay. So there's a happy ending. The dog was adopted. Didn't South Park have this exact same joke? I'm pretty sure that South Park had this, this was a thing that played out on South Park.
the dogs are constantly humping each other at the dog park.
Yeah,
Like
it's,
that's
it's
normal.
a dominance thing, right? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily sexual.
That's the only time I've ever seen Root not love another dog. A dog tried to hump her, and she was like, "Woof."
You know what the best ending to this story would be if the gay couple adopt the dog because he's gay, and then he starts humping only female dogs, and they give him back too.
They're like, "Oh,
Well, we're going to be the first to break this story to you. Putin is dead.
Had a heart attack.
April
surgery.
Fools.
Not exactly.
It's actually not even April Fool.
Putin, a Minnesota zoo's male Emmer tiger, dies during a routine procedure. So he's actually the father of a bunch of tiger cubs for a bunch of zoos, and he's not even that old. And they were just giving him a routine exam. You get the feeling that he was on some kind of tranquilizer, maybe, so that he could be examined. He had a heart attack and died.
He also ran the intelligence service there at the zoo. The saddest part is they had two, male and female, and now the poor female's all by herself.
Yeah.
One day,
With all those kittens.
Putin went into the secret room, and he never came out. She probably goes over and sits by the door waiting for him.
Do tigers mate for life like some species? I don't know.
I think they do hang out together, like lions.
But lions, it's not they don't have two who mate forever.
No, they got the alpha male.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
But they have
tigers
the
do.
pride,
Yeah.
and the women serve the men, which is hilarious.
I think it's more the men are incompetent at hunting, right?
No, because they can fight and stuff. If there's a threat to the whole thing,
The
they
group,
will
they'll
do something.
fight,
They just
yeah.
don't like to, they conserve their energy instead of hunting. And Maharashtra, I don't know where that is. Oh, it's in India. Right there it is. India,
top.
they are embarking on some sex education. Now, India is a world, we've talked about this before, where they have some people who believe that you should drink cow urine, and they have some people who are sending rockets into space. Again, I'll go back to the Neanderthal theory. Not the same set of bloodlines, I assume.
I mean, we kind of have that here in America, though, too.
It's true everywhere.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's just India. I'm saying everywhere has this, and these bloodlines are mixed everywhere, and you do never know who the Neanderthal is. There might be genetic testing, but then you get into eugenics. Probably shouldn't do that. Anyway, some people in India think that there should be sex education. Other people think that that is Satan.
It turns out that this is the BBC reporting this too. Keep in mind, rubber penis in a family planning kit has sparked a row. There's some people that don't want that, and some that do.
Will that demonetize us?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
It absolutely probably.
What was the
would.
purpose of putting these in here?
Show how to put a condom on it.
Oh.
Well, I don't know that for sure. That's how they did it when I was in middle school.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because, it's not obvious to a kid.
Yeah.
You get this little rolled up thing. I'm like, well, how do I do this? You got to pinch the top. And so they go through that whole situation. I don't know why they have to be slightly different sizes. Look at that.
It's just a perspective.
I'm sorry you guys can't say. No, I'm pretty sure the one at the far one is smaller.
You can go check out the article if you're that interested.
If you're really curious about what it looks like.
I mean, it's on the BBC, but things are weird, so who knows?
And in the nonsense section, I love to throw in a good poop story.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm a child. I think poop's funny.
And this one's also technology related.
And it's funny because they say that in order to qualify for this, you have to be it's 88 degrees in Phoenix right now. Wow, it's March.
That's cool weather there.
But they say that you have to be very healthy and pass a bunch of screening. Do you think any of us could pass this screening?
No, there's no chance.
To have our poop purchased?
Let's go through it.
Get paid up to $1,200 a month for your poop by a Tempe research company. So
What serious illnesses? What's a disqualifier? Scroll down.
They didn't say. They just said that you had to go through a screener. You can't have any diseases, and you have to be otherwise very healthy.
18 to 50.
What they're looking for
We don't
is
qualify.
they believe that your gut health can be damaged, and then the right way to fix it, which we've heard of this before, is where you take healthy poop
A fecal transplant.
and you put it, you go in and stick it in there. But whose poop is healthy enough to be the basis for this?
I eat oatmeal almost every morning. I
maybe
could
you should
totally
sign up.
qualify.
There is actually a couple of stories for people that have had that, and it has actually solved some chronic illnesses for people, some chronic inflammation. There was one case where, apparently with diabetes type 1, it did a lot to take care of diet. They don't want to say that it's completely resolved it, but it's
Improved it.
yeah. So
You know how, people who get an organ transplant, they always sort of have this bond, and sometimes they'll get together on holidays and stuff like that. You think they'll do that for the poop transplant people?
You think it'll be like cancer, where that one lady that had cancer in the 1960s, her cancer is still alive, and like you can just grow it in a petri dish and it doesn't need anything. And it's like, oh, this is what we use to study cancer.
It'll be like, remember the girl who was selling her farts in a jar?
Yeah.
It'll be like her, except instead of, something ridiculous, you're actually selling your poop.
Weren't we just mocking people for drinking urine?
Well, we're not going to eat the poop.
This is
You misunderstand the use of
there's
the excrement.
a purpose for this, not just I want a jar of fart gas on my wall.
For the idiocy among us, there might not be a lot of distinction between those two.
But don't get it twisted. We're not eating this poop. We're stuffing it up our butts.
Totally different.
Totally different thing. And speaking of the just astonishing reach of modern science, without any of the questions as, should we do this?
Dodo DNA sequencing raises hope of bringing the bird out of extinction.
Michael Crichton is just spinning in his grave right now.
Well, we've already
Is he
tried
dead?
Yeah, he died.
Oh.
Like 2 or 3 years ago.
We've already tried it with dinosaurs. It turns out that the dinosaur's DNA has been shredded to the point there's only little tiny pieces left, if that.
Also,
It's
they were going
hard.
to try it with the mammoth. Remember the mammoth?
The mammoth DNA that we have is also super damaged, it turns out. But the dodo, it's relatively recent, so its DNA may be intact enough for cloning.
What if they're really invasive? Like they just invade every corner of the planet.
They never stop screaming.
They're so obnoxious. They kill all the birds at your bird feeder.
Well, I threw this in just because, it's amazing that the whole idea of Nazis and white supremacists are the boogeyman, and they have been for so long. But even after Justin Trudeau and Biden and now Putin has used that cudgel, we still are not seeing it for what it is, which is just a political scapegoat.
Pandemic fitness trends have gone extreme, literally.
So getting in shape is hypermasculinity and white supremacy.
I don't really agree with this, but there was a really funny video that my husband sent me the other day of like one of these fitness like influencer sort of dudes, and he was making the argument that you should crawl everywhere. But the best part of the video was him like just crawling in parks, and he'd clearly set up a camera, and like there are other people walking in the park, and he's just like, and he's put like this really intense hyper masculine sort of like power up music over it, and it's the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
I mean,
It was hilarious. It wasn't really threatening, but it was really funny.
The bear walk and the crab walk are like legit.
Yeah, I'm sure they're very good, but it was just funny that he took the time to go to like a public park because it looked more. He had his shirt off and everything, and he was just crawling around.
Extreme.
Yeah, it was really funny. It wasn't supposed to be.
Did you get any hints of white supremacy from him?
No, but I laughed really hard at the video. I may have put it on my important videos list so I could rewatch it later.
Well, going back to Disney, it is the Magic Kingdom, and they are very careful about maintaining the perfect level of magic with extreme discipline. And if you go too far, they will find you.
Yahoo Life. We have a story for Yahoo Life. This is a small miracle in and of itself. Headline is: Woman claims she was dress coded, quote unquote dress coded, at Disney World, and allegedly told to change. And then she said, "Well, I'm thinking back. I kind of agree with them."
Is there a picture of the outfit?
There's a
There is.
video.
Yeah. And so apparently this means that when you get
can
this,
scroll up.
they'll
God.
give you a coupon to go in the gift shop and get a T-shirt. And so she put a T-shirt on over her shirt, which was too revealing. Or
You
whatever.
literally have to log in and agree to cookies to see. They won't even link you to. Oh, here we go. We can see this. Okay, yeah. You can kind of see it there.
Yeah. So it's not really that bad.
Oh,
but
it's a fringe kind of shirt.
There's no bra under there.
yeah.
Oh.
She needed to wear a shirt. It's like, oh, okay.
So they marched her to a clothing place. And I wonder if they paid for that shirt.
They did.
Oh,
They
okay.
mentioned that in the article that that it was free, and people in the comments were saying that stuff like that had happened to them, and they made them pay for the shirt. So now there was like, is it because she was an influencer she didn't have to pay for the shirt, or?
Well, I think
policy?
that's a message to all the thoughts. You got a nice body, go to Disney, get a free T-shirt.
If your ticket to Disneyland is over $1,000, I'm pretty sure they can give you a shirt.
Oh no, Disney. I looked this up recently. Disney tickets are like $110 per day.
That's still
Is
crazy.
that
It is-
now-
it
but
is
that's
absolutely insane.
That's the rock bottom get you into the park one, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Because they've also got all the upselling stuff to skip the line.
I have no idea how much all that costs.
And is that just the Magic Kingdom? What
I'm
about
not sure.
Epcot?
Oh, I didn't even know. I don't know.
There's
You get-
different
you-
parks.
I
get
looked it up because my mother-in-law wants everyone to go down to Florida like in the fall, and I'm kind of not wanting to go. But I looked it up, and after seeing the prices of some of those parks, I was like, I really don't want to go.
Don't look at the prices of the parks. Look at the prices of food.
Ooh.
It is astonishing.
I really want to spend time with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, so I just
You
don't know if I
love,
want to go to parks.
You love Pepsi, right, Krista?
I'll drink one every now and then.
How about an $8 Pepsi?
It's not, I don't like it that much.
I don't. For some reason, I've got a mental image of somebody that had ravioli at one of the Disney parks, and it was literally one ravioli.
$200.
Yeah.
Was it Chef Boyardee size?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty big, but it was just, and it had
A
like the
ravioli.
parsley, and it was, in
Singular.
a fancy plate, but it was one ravioli. It's like,
What was that, like $8?
I think
$7?
I think that was $17 because they had a picture of their receipt with it as well, and it was like, this is a reasonable price for a meal, and then you get that, and it's like, this is not reasonable.
Think how many blueberry bushes I could buy with $110.
You know the worst part about, wearing your slutty outfit into Disney? You can't sneak food in.
Yeah, well, now you got to carry the big bag. Pro criminal tip, if you're a woman, carry a large purse into like the movie
I
theater.
think they'll search it though these days, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Post 9/11, I think they'll search everything.
Wow.
Because you might be bringing a bomb in there.
You're not allowed to bring that bag of M&Ms.
They might not even let you have the bag. I guess they'd have to let you have like a diaper bag or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You have a fake baby in a stroller, and then you carry the diaper bag.
No, you just say these diapers are for me.
Oh.
I'll stand in line all day. I'll never leave. This is a hilarious video because it was a very stupid person who I guess thought they were doing something brave and honorable to help these possums, but really they were just blocking traffic, and they just kept making noise afterwards to the point that they had to prove it.
The police released body cam video after man complains officer mistreated a possum in the road.
They could find the body cam video for this.
Living somewhere with possums don't care. You can get a shovel and just scoop it up off the road, toss it to the side. It does not care.
They're mean as hell, too.
There were two possums. One was dead, or they assumed one was dead. The other one was playing dead, which is a tactic that possums will use when they're threatened. And so this guy had stopped his car and was waiting for the possums to move out on their own. He was stopping traffic to keep traffic from hurting the living possum. So the cop showed up to the call that says, hey, there's a guy blocking traffic on the road. And he went over and he took his foot and he pushed the dead possum off to the side of the road. And this guy said that was a terrible crime.
That was not a crime.
Have you seen pictures or video of Australia's possums?
I don't think so.
They're super cute and like fluffy and sweet. I think there was a mix-up. I think we have Australia's possum and they have North America's possum.
But our possum had to come from the same line originally, right? Like there was a land bridge at some point.
Maybe, yeah.
And that was probably a lot of years of evolution.
But there was a mix-up when all of the North American animals came up. They were like, oh, sweet and cute possum, you should come with us. And he was like, no, I'll stay here with all the scary shit.
It was a de-evolution in the case.
Yeah.
Or maybe just, life was so hard in Australia for all the animals, that possum figured out, it's like, I got to go to the cute route. I need the people to protect me.
They're probably going to discover a lot of cures for a lot of diseases in the possums because things like rabies, and I just shrug all that off.
They eat ticks, too.
Our future is like fursona. We all get mixed with possum to make our blood stronger.
We need their genes.
I kind of want to attract possums to my property. I've not seen any. I see them dead on the side of the road all the time.
You don't have to do anything.
But if you ever think about letting that cat outside, you don't want a possum around.
If you want to compost things and you have like fruit and stuff and you just put that at the bottom of the pile, the possums will find it and they will get super aggressive.
See, we have a barrel. I've been thinking about going to a pile, but then I'm like, how many possums will show up and start messing with it?
Once a possum learns they can get fruit from your property, you are going to have no end of possums.
You know what you could do,
We
Krista?
have apple trees, though, and I never see them.
You could start an Etsy store for possum skin clothing.
Oh, see, I want them just because I want them to be eating ticks back in the woods, but...
Well, they ain't going to eat ticks if you've got pineapple.
Other food, yeah.
And our final story is another great social media fart story. You can't go wrong with these.
Singer hospitalized because she wouldn't fart in front of partner.
See, that's
She's
sweet.
23.
That's sweet that she wouldn't do that, but surely you just go to the bathroom.
Has no one taught her? I mean, you don't even have to go to the bathroom. It's fine.
Just point away.
There was a picture embedded on the one.
Oh, it was a Twitter, Twitter link.
Here's a pro tip: if you're like, especially if you're in a new relationship and you go on a trip with somebody, you make an excuse to leave, then you go to the lobby.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would think just going to the bathroom would do it. But, you know.
But in a hotel room,
No, they still hear it if it's loud
not
enough.
only do they hear it, but it's going to leave.
You get
Lingering.
That's where the courtesy flush is, so the filling sound covers it, or turning the sink on. You turn the sink on and then.
So here she is. She's an influencer, and she is also packed to the gills with methane and gas.
At the hospital, they said all you got to do is fart, and you're good to go.
Can you actually hurt yourself if you don't do it long enough? Like, can you lose the ability?
They didn't really enumerate what was going on with her disease exactly, just that she was damaged somehow by it, but I guess so, right?
Wow.
If you don't pee, I learned this from the guy that did Survivor. He was doing Survivor, and you had to be on the set all day, and the only way that you could pee, because you couldn't pee on the ground, that would attract rats, and the Survivor people didn't like that. So you had to go a long way from the set and pee, and he was just like, I'll just hold it. And he described a situation where his bladder lost its elasticity. It got so big, he had to catheter himself 3 times a day for like 6 months to get it back to normal.
Wow.
And after I heard that story, the slightest urge to pee, I'm running for it. I don't
Yeah.
care.
I was bad about that when I was a kid. I didn't want to miss anything.
Now you got a smartphone.
Yeah. I don't have to read shampoo bottles anymore.
Nice.
Well, we get 56 minutes.
That was a long episode.
A redemption week.
Yeah. Let's see which one the algorithm promotes. The answer is neither.
Woo!
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.